Hey everyone, deleted scenes from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, probably the most discussed topic around the movie throughout its existence. I have arranged all the deleted material in chronological order and integrated it into the film's plot. To this day, many wonder what TSM2 looked like originally, and most importantly, was the director's cut of the film better than the theatrical version? Since the sequel's release with Garfield's Spidey, a huge amount of deleted material about The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has appeared online. What was the director's uncut version of Mark Webb's film like? Right now, we are going to fully dissort it together. So, the movie begins with the farewell of Mary and Richard Parker to Peter, and then their flight on the plane, which crashes. In a deleted moment, Richard takes a gun from the killer and goes to check if the pilot is dead. Trying to lift him up, he accidentally pushes the steering wheel down, which ultimately causes the plane to crash. Years later, during Spider-Man's chase of Alexei Satsevich, Peter jumps over police cars to catch the robber. At the same time, he saved the lives of Oscorp employee Max Dillon, for which Max is incredibly grateful. After capturing Satsevich and receiving diplomas at graduation, Flash approaches Parker and Gwen, thanking them for their help in preparing for exams, then hugs Peter and leaves. Later that evening, Parker and Stacy part ways, as Peter couldn't forget the promise he made to her father.
So I want you to promise me something, okay? Leave Gwen out of it.
And then the creators showed Spider-Man's ordinary routine, among which there was also supposed to be a scene of Peter meeting Mary Jane Watson, his new neighbor, who happens to be a Spidey fan. Her father is a cruel alcoholic, and MJ herself works as a waitress. In her free time, she enjoys building motorcycles. Apparently she liked Peter. Meanwhile, Max Dillon celebrates his own birthday with his mother. Well, it's more accurate to say Max Dillon celebrates his birthday alone.
It's a special day today. Do you have anything special that you want to say to me on my special day?
The same thing I tell you every day. You're a dummy.
Suddenly, the power goes out at Max's home, and his mother's respirator stops working. When her son restores the electricity, he approaches her to remind her about his birthday, but she either forgot about it or simply doesn't care, so she asks Dylan to bring her cigarettes. In fact, filmmakers made a mistake by cutting out Electro's mom, as it would have helped develop the villain much better. By the way, Max doesn't have much luck at work either, as his colleagues treat him like dirt.
Happy birthday.
He remains alone to do their duties, which leads him to fall into a tank with electric eels. Meanwhile, Harry Osborn bids farewell to his father before his death, due to an incurable hereditary disease, which has now been passed on to Harry. After that, he becomes the head of Oscorp. Peter learns about Norman's death and decides to visit his old friend. When they finally meet, Harry tells Parker about his illness, and the friends discuss Spider-Man.
Kinda like to think it gives people hope. For what? Maybe eventually everything's gonna be alright. I just wish I had time for eventually.
After Max fell into the tank with electric eels, he transformed into Electro. An Oscorp agent delivered Dylan's body to some psycho, insisting that everything should remain secret. Upon touching Max, he receives a powerful electric shock, thus awakening him. Later in the plot, Electro comes home and sees his supposedly sick mother walking. Moreover, she receives money after her son's death. In reality, she was just using him to take care of her. Crushed and broken, he heads to Times Square. At this time, Peter was spending time with Gwen, and she confessed to him that she was planning to apply to Oxford. Then Spider-Man flew to stop the rebellious Electro. There was a confrontation between them, after which Max ended up in Ravencroft, where experiments were conducted on him, and Dylan harbored a deep resentment towards Spider-Man. Back at his home, Parker, after another superhero day, just lies down and feels sad about Gwen's upcoming move to England, and she, in parallel, is also upset about it. Honestly, it's unclear why this moment was cut. There are no lines here, just the character's emotions. The next day, Harry invites Peter to Oscorp for a very important conversation. He shows his friend a life support exoskeleton and says that Peter can save his life.
Check it out.
Amazing joint flexibility. Like, what are you using? You're using servo motors?
No, it's electrically conductive nanofibers. Any battlefield injury, a broken leg, gunshot wound, the suit pretty much does the walking for you while it heals your body.
He then reveals that Parker has been watched since early childhood. Norman kept an eye on every step the boy took, just in case Richard appeared. Additionally, Osborn showcases an old video made by their fathers many years ago, in which they talk about genetically modified spiders that in theory can cure humanity of dozens of diseases, including Harry's condition. Therefore, Osborn asks Peter to bring Spider-Man to him, as he knows the hero is acquainted with him through his photos for the Daily Bugle. Though hesitantly, the protagonist agrees. Eventually, Spider-Man himself himself arrives to Harry and refuses to provide his blood, thus taking away Osborn's last hope. Then Peter set in despair on the rooftop. By the way, that rope tied around Parker's neck is not what you're thinking about. Actually, Spider-Man once saved MJ from her drunken father, who was beating her, and then wrapped him up in a cocoon of webbing. Meanwhile, in his office, Harry, digging up secret files, learns about Electro and his whereabouts. Donald Mencken forcefully ejects him from Oscorp and suspends him from business. Harry decides to free Dylan from Ravencroft. Meanwhile, Gwen comes to Peter to tell him that she has indeed been accepted to Oxford and is moving to England. However, he's not home, so Stacy asks Aunt May to pass on the message. Interestingly, after this conversation, Gwen strikes up a dialogue with Mary Jane. MJ tells Gwen that she always has bad luck with guys, and she always attracts someone awful. She happens to like Peter, so she asks Gwen where to find someone like him, and Stacy says, date a nerd, symbolically giving her approval for their future relationship with Parker. Also, Mary Jane is a big fan of Spider-Man, and she even has a tattoo of him. Well, when Peter returns home, May tells him to hire after Gwen. After all, if he truly loves her, he should catch up with Stacy right now and confess his feelings. Meanwhile, Harry infiltrates Ravencroft and forms an alliance with Electro to put an end to Spider-Man once and for all. Then they visit Donald Mencken and force him to take Osborn to a secret laboratory where all the remaining samples of radioactive spider serum are kept. Once there, after injecting himself with one of them, Harry begins to transform. By the way, the creators removed from the theatrical version the extended and more gruesome transformation of Osborn into the Green Goblin, which you can now see on your screen. Then the Goblin flies off to seek revenge on Mencken. First, he blows up a special forces unit with one of his bombs and tells Felicia Hardy to leave Oscorp, and then he drops Donald Mencken from a great height.
Right. The fall is fast and steep.
As Spider-Man catches up with Gwen, he confesses his love to her and promises that they will go to England together. However, they are interrupted by Electro, causing chaos in New York City. Moving on to the battle between Dylan and Spider-Man, naturally Spidey emerges victorious by overloading Max with energy. Then the second round begins, but this time with the Goblin. Harry grabs Gwen and throws her from a height. Parker catches her, but ultimately fails to save her, and she dies not only because of the Goblin, but also because of Peter himself. It was him who put her in danger, disregarding responsibility. After Stacy's death, consumed with hatred, Parker starts beating Osborn almost to death, but stops just in time. Moreover, Gwen, before dying, tells Peter never to give up. Later, at the grave of his beloved, his father appears to him. Richard advises his son.
With great power comes great responsibility.
By the way, this scene is very emotional.
What? What? Say it! Say what you want to say! What do you want to say? Where you been?
Meanwhile, Gustav Fierce begins preparations to create the Sinister Six. In the deleted scenes, we see the head of Norman Osborn and Venom stored in a container. Actually, many of the deleted moments should have been left. Without them, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 would indeed be poorer, but they don't solve the film's main problems, although they make it better. This means only one thing: the main problem of the film lies solely in its screenplay.